This is ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Zach Sako here, and on the phones, it is truly a privilege as we welcome on Penns Valley football head coach Martin Tobias. Coach, thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on the success that this Rams team has seen this year.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all your support and what you do for high school football.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch the one game. We followed Bellefonte on the station this year, but to see that game between Penns Valley and Bellefonte, that was one of my more memorable matchups this year. And to follow along and talk about Penns Valley to this point and see just how far the team has come and everything else. And that's what we're going to discuss today, Coach, is the start and how this team made it to this point, recap the game against Bald Eagle, the district semifinal game, and then previewing what's to come. That is Bishop Guilfoyle this Friday, November 18th. So let's begin with because this is our first conversation together, Coach. So this season, when you were in the off season or the first summer practices that were coming together, what did you know you had in this group of players?
We had a great group of kids, great group of players who really enjoy the game and they enjoy being around each other. They had a real good work ethic and were like sponges. They just absorbed everything that we threw at them and took it and really worked hard at getting better. And I think a lot of that has led to the improvement throughout the season and the success that we've had.
One of the biggest challenges, I think, in high school football just across Pennsylvania is always having these deep rosters. And this has kind of been, like I said, it's been not necessarily an issue, but it's much more advantageous for teams to have a guy go one way as opposed to going both ways. But a lot of these kids have a lot of stamina out there, and they're able to play two positions, a running back and a linebacker, a quarterback and a safety. So how are the players able to do this time and time again as far as they've gone through the season, to play both ways and to be on the field so much?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to what you said, that they have to be well-conditioned. They have to be strong in their physical aspect as well as the mental aspect of the game. And honestly, we as coaches have a responsibility to them to monitor them and to make sure that we're not overdoing it with any one of them at any point in time. We are fortunate enough that we have enough depth that we've created throughout the season that very few of our players have to play an entire game going both ways. So there are kids who may be out there for stretches, but they're still getting those breaks that are also important to aid in the recovery so that they can remain strong throughout the game.
Penns Valley head coach Martin Tobias is joining us on the line here on our high school sports show, PA Prep Sports Breakdown on ESPN Radio. My name is Zach Sako. Coach, you've been doing this for quite some time. I would like to know if there are any biggest differences in this season, maybe with teams just over the past, maybe the past decade or so when it comes to high school football in central Pennsylvania. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen coming across the landscape or even just this year in 2022?
I would say the biggest change that I've seen isn't in the kids themselves. It's more in the game. I think that there's much more passing than there used to be. When I first started coaching, everything was more run-oriented, and the evolution of the pass game at the high school level has been instrumental for many teams and the success that they've had. It's created a more wide-open game, and that really has forced teams to adjust. I think in many cases, coaches and teams are adjusting based on the skill level, the talent set that they have, which is what any good coach should and will do.
I think that's very true. And not to say that one is simpler than the other, but passing concepts can get a little complicated. For you and your coaching staff, what do you do to simplify so that you can have a balance, so that you can have an aerial attack? Because simply put, running the football off tackle, it has easier responsibilities when everyone knows where they're supposed to go, as opposed to everyone running a different route when you have 3-4 wide receivers. So how are you able to simplify it with this group so that they get the best results on the field?
Well, I think it comes in two phases. One is the teaching and making sure that everybody understands what they're doing, and then the repetition so that it becomes natural for them and that they don't have to think about it. And that's where your summer workouts and summer passing leagues and 7-on-7s all make a big difference so that it becomes part of the routine for the kids. It then goes into the season when you're now wearing the gear. You don't have to be thinking about the plays as much because you've already been doing them and preparing them. We try and keep it simple, and within the simplicity, there is a complexity that comes from your different formations and different looks, but it's players still doing the same thing.
Coach Martin Tobias of Penns Valley is on the line with us here on ESPN Radio. Coach, your team is currently sitting 10-2 overall. You have the 2 playoff wins from the quarterfinals and the semifinals, but 8-2 in the regular season and 4-2 in a very competitive Mountain League. I've been saying all along this season that I wish there was a conference type of playoff, but I understand how the PIAA has everything set up because there were just so many games that, fortunately, we had that Bald Eagle Penns Valley rematch, but there were just some other ones, the Tyrone game, for example, or maybe a Clearfield. But how did this regular season schedule and the results that you were able to put together prepare you for this point in time now in the playoffs?
Oh, I think it had a big part in preparing us to start off the way we did with a few good wins and then go into a tough contest with Bald Eagle and then Clearfield back-to-back, suffering the 2 losses that we did, taught us a lot about ourselves, taught us a lot about us as a team, and we as coaches were able to evaluate what we needed to improve. The kids were real receptive to that. Yes, they were disappointed with the losses, but they understood it wasn't the end of the season, and that we were stressing to them the importance of working to improve, getting better collectively. And they did it as a team. It wasn't an individual here or there. It was a collective team thing that they all worked together to make themselves better so that we could perform better. And I think that we've seen that growth from those 2 games and then the continued growth from game to game throughout the season.
And let's look at that Bald Eagle game the first time on September 16th. That one went in favor of the Eagles. It was 42-27. I don't want you to dwell on a loss, but what was taken out of that game, because the result was resounding the second time around. So what were you able to correct and look back on that game that helped you this time around?
I think that the big thing was that we realized it was closer than the score showed, and that we were beaten by big plays. So our goal going into this game was to limit those big plays, and we weren't perfect, but we did force them to try and drive the field more consistently than we had in the first game. They certainly have an explosive, up-tempo, high-attack offense and a defense that just flies all over the field. They're physical. We knew all of these things, but we were also prepared from having played them before, so there wasn't the same wonder or concern. It was about us doing things better than we had done the first time and trying to match up with them in a more advantageous situation while limiting them. Now, granted, like I said, they hit us with a couple big plays, a couple quick scores, but after those couple scores, we were able to make some corrections. Kids were able to play their techniques a little bit better and understand how they got caught, and we didn't have that happen from there on out. So it was a tough contest between 2 really good teams. I have a tremendous respect for Bald Eagle and a tremendous respect for their coaches and kids and the way they play the game. They're fast, they're physical. They did so many good things, but we were fortunate enough to capitalize on some mistakes and force them into doing some things that they don't want to do or normally don't do.
And Penns Valley, like I said, was able to win this game 34-14. So it was decisive in your favor. Where did it start? And there's so many players that where the offensive firepower comes from: a Jackson Romig at quarterback, a Ty Watson at running back, wide receivers like John Meyer and Miles Brooks, Hunter Lyons. And I know that I could go up and down the roster and ask you, say, hey, what's so special about this kid? What's so special about this individual? And we could do a whole segment, a whole conversation about that as well. But from the specific district semifinal game, where did it begin for the offense that they were able to move the ball so effectively?
It started up front. It does in every game. You know, the guys you rattled off, they're tremendous ball players, and they've really put together a nice collective season together. They play well off of each other. But our guys up front have improved, and I think that that's where the biggest difference was. They were able to set the tone. Hunter Stake, our center, and then our guards, Gavin Ryan and Scott Hess, and then our tackles, Rylan Lohner and Landon Hess. You know, those 5 guys up front really have improved, and they made such a big difference in getting after the Bald Eagle defensive linemen and linebackers. It's what opened things up for us.
Penns Valley football head coach Martin Tobias is with us on our high school sports show, PA Prep Sports Breakdown. Coach, I do want to thank you so much for your time again. We're getting into now the championship game. This is what is going to set aside from it. And this season has seen a lot of success, but I know that you, your players, your coaches have eyes on bigger prizes past the district championship game to get in the state playoffs, but you have to go through a very difficult team in Bishop Guilfoyle. The Marauders are coming off a state championship a year ago in single A. They've now moved up to double A, and they're seeing the same type of success just from looking at that program as a whole, because this isn't a team that Penns Valley or anybody else in the Mountain League are necessarily familiar with. So getting onto those uncharted territories, what do you know about Bishop Guilfoyle that stood out to you immediately when you saw this matchup coming?
They're fast and they're physical. They're well coached. They're very disciplined, and they throw a lot of different things at you, which makes it difficult to prepare for them.
And very true. And I saw that on display. I had the privilege of getting to watch this team last year, and that was a young team. They returned all of those guys that went on a championship run, and now they're all back. It starts with the quarterback, Carson Kiesewetter, and this is a true dual-threat quarterback. I know that you've seen some throughout the regular season, but he's on a different level himself. He's thrown for 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's run for 1,269 yards on 177 carries, so he's kind of their do-it-all player. I know that he's going to be tough to stop, but how do you even think about limiting him, containing him, because he is the focal point on offense?
That's a really good question, and if you have an answer for that, I'd be happy to hear it. He is dynamic, and he is special, and you're right. He's unlike anything that we've seen or faced this year, and it's hard to even get a good look at something like that in practice because we don't have any players who can do what he does. So we're just going to have to make sure that we try and limit him. We know we're not going to be able to stop him. But again, it's that idea of preventing the big play, making sure that we limit the number of opportunities that they have on the offensive side of the ball because they are explosive. And he is where everything goes through him. He's where things start, and he's the one who, if we can take care of him, we'll then have to hope that we can also contain their other players.
Yeah, like I said, he makes the offense go, but stopping him would be crucial for the efforts of Penns Valley. Now, flipping it over to what Bishop Guilfoyle offers defensively, Coach, they have 5 tacklers with 89-plus tackles, 2 guys in the 100s, a couple guys in the 90s, and the 1 player at 89. They also have 6 senior defenders that play a critical role on this defense. Without spilling too much of the game plan here, because the championship game, you want to keep everything secret going into Friday, what do you need to do to be able to expose some mistakes and capitalize like you did against Bald Eagle, but this time against a completely different team in Bishop Guilfoyle?
Yeah, they really present some challenges and difficulties, especially with the way they move around and the athleticism that they have all across the field. We've got to sustain our blocks. We've got to keep our feet moving. We've got to take good blocking angles. We've got to go to where the players are going, not where they are. All of those little fundamental things to try and even give ourselves a chance. If we try and get too complex or too tricky, that's not going to work versus these guys, and that takes away from what we do. We've got to go out there and we've got to be who we are, and we've got to try and do the best that we can in executing who we are against a really formidable defense.
Penns Valley football head coach Martin Tobias is on the line with us here on PA Prep Sports Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio. Coach, just a couple more questions here about the atmosphere of a district championship game, but first specifically a coaching battle. Do you think about this at all? I know that you have, as you mentioned, the tremendous respect for some of the best programs in Central Pennsylvania and beyond. But Justin Wheeler is the architect behind this Bishop Guilfoyle program. He's led them to multiple championship runs, multiple championship wins. So do you think about, hey, this is nice to go head to head and see who can come out on top at the end of the day?
Yes. To answer your question, quite frankly, Coach Wheeler's a really good coach, and there's no question he's got the track record to back it up. To be able to match him head to head is a challenge that we kind of embrace, because in order to be the best, you want to play the best. And in my opinion, he is one of the best. He's one of the best coaches. He's got one of the best programs. And obviously, with the two of us being at this particular juncture for Friday night's game, we're the two guys that get to match up and see who's going to come out on top. And it's that chess match, those X's and O's that are a part of it behind the scenes, while the kids are at the forefront, because it is about the players and them going out and executing. But we're doing our part to try and match him or to try and outfox him in some way.
Coach, the final question for you, and again, I really appreciate your time as we've had an extended conversation here, but the atmosphere itself, a district championship game, this is the closest that this group of players has been. So kind of dissecting the moment, how the players have handled it, and how has the community been behind this Penns Valley team, and what are you expecting from the game as a whole, as it's going to be played at Altoona's Mansion Park as a neutral site? So kind of a three-part question here: how the players have dealt with this feeling of being this far in the postseason, the community support that you've received, and then just the overall atmosphere, how rowdy you think it will be Friday night in Altoona.
One, I think our players have handled it great. They've taken that 1 week at a time approach that we've been preaching and instilling in them. So that's been awesome. Yeah, they're excited and they're having fun. This has been a really fun group to be coaching. Every team is different every year. This group has its own unique qualities and traits as well as quirks, but they've been a lot of fun. They show up every day and they work really hard at trying to get a little bit better and do things a little bit better while doing it together. And that's something that we've all marveled at, is how supportive they are of one another. It's not as though one guy's standing out in front saying, hey, this is about me. No, this is all 11 guys on the field and all 35 of them together for this journey. As far as the community support goes, it's been incredible. The support that the fans have shown, the support that the community has shown, the support of parents, classmates, schoolmates, the kids here at school, they've been awesome as far as week to week congratulating. They show up at the games in a loud, raucous student section supporting our players, and I'm anticipating that continuing into the game Friday night. It's building. It's building. You can feel it. The momentum and that excitement is building within the school, within the community, and we're really appreciative for all of that kind of support. It's something that I'm very proud of, this Penns Valley community. Not just football, but all of our fall sports teams had really successful seasons. And the way the students support each other, whether it's the boys soccer team, the girls soccer team, the cross-country teams, they've all had tremendous success this year, as well as us with football. And the students support one another, and the community supports all of the students who are involved in those activities. So that makes it really special for all of us.
And that's great to hear, because I know that the game is going to be electric in Penns Valley. I know that they will travel well, but they almost have to, because this could be considered a home type of game, since Bishop Guilfoyle is over in that Altoona area, but they are playing at the school district's field. It will be an incredible matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I know that yourself and everybody else is as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Penns Valley football head coach Martin Tobias joining us on the show. Coach, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck on Friday, and I hope that we can catch up soon and recap the result regardless of what the outcome is, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for the time and having me on this evening.